Consumer watchdog says it wants more authority to regulate. New Papua New Guinea citizens recognized. And Bougainville calls for UN to set up local office.
This is National EMTV News with Mary Bartolo.
A very good evening. It's the end of the formal working week. This is Friday's news. Papua New Guinea's competition watchdog says it needs the teeth to bite in order to regulate how businesses dominate markets. The Commission has completed its investigation into ExxonMobil's acquisition of Interoil, bringing to attention the need for law provisions to stop monopolies. ICCC Commissioner says they can only investigate companies, but they can't fully protect the country without laws that give them more power. Bethany Harriman with this report.
The Commission has been investigating companies which continue to control market share in sectors like manufacturing, oil, gas and logistics. Today it made public a report based on an inquiry into ExxonMobil's acquisition of Interoil. In a 6-page media release, the Commission highlights 3 markets that could be affected by the move. But it goes on to say a conclusion cannot be easily reached.
Everything's in Exxon's court, so to speak. And that's some of the biggest concerns that we found out. And we hope that with this new Papua LNG arrangement that they're having, that these can be picked up and worked around instead of us falling into the same trap again.
Commissioner Paulus Ain says the watchdog doesn't have the provisions of power to stop corporations from dominating the markets, dictating prices and doing what they want.
ExxonMobil and its partners to come to us and let's go through the process under the ICCC Act. It requires us to give an approval as to whether or not there is a competition concern. We need to assess and approve that. And as a result, they've decided to go away, saying that there is no competition concern. We can go ahead and acquire acquiring Interoil. So they have gone ahead, and as a result, we conduct this independent investigation to establish, and as a result we got these concerns now releasing formally to stakeholders and consumers.
Papua New Guinea is a growing economy with vast interest from multinationals that have the finances to buy off other companies. The ICCC has the task of ensuring that there is a leveled playing field for all companies and making sure companies meet the demand of the domestic market.
So major players come in with their economic giants advising them on competition side of things, and they gradually push it through. But if they could see the little ICCC as some part in this, and by coming to us, we will definitely point to them that this is wrong. Then we can always learn from this one and put something better for our country going forward.
With the current state of the world economy, the watchdog has the challenge of making sure that PNG is exporting resources and also keeping some for domestic use. The Commission says the relevant government agencies dealing with developers must be in close dialogue with them. Bethany Harriman, National EMTV News.
Catholic faithful gathered today at the Rabaul Catholic headquarters at Vunapope in Kokopo to protest the deportation of Douglas Tennant. A petition was presented to the East New Britain provincial government demanding an explanation from the Office of Foreign Affairs and Immigration on the motive behind Tennant's deportation. The protest comes a week after Douglas Tennant, a New Zealand Catholic missionary, was deported on grounds of having an invalid visa.
Those who gathered today knows Douglas Grant Tennant or is a close friend. They represent their parish, schools and other Catholic-run agencies. They came from various parts of East New Britain province to show their support to the man that they see hasn't broke any immigration laws and a person who is exposing corrupt land dealings in the province. Each group carry placards with bold writing, "We want Doug back" and "Justice for Doug." The protest today comes a week after the Office of Foreign Affairs and Immigration ordered Douglas Tennant to leave the country on grounds of having an invalid entry permit. Mr. Tennant is a lay missionary from New Zealand and a former lecturer of law at UPNG who was attached to the Rabaul Catholic Archdiocese as an administrator. It is understood Mr. Tennant was providing legal advice to landowners at the Sigite Mukos oil palm project in West Pomio, a disputed project developed on customary land.
Sigite Mukos oil palm project.
On Sunday this week, he was forced to leave East Newberton, and on Monday, he was deported from Port Moresby. Today, the Rabaul Catholic Archdiocese presented a petition to the East Newberton provincial government demanding answers relating to his removal. The Archbishop of Rabaul Archdiocese, Father Francisco Penfilo, also questioned the government's intentions.
At that time, I knew that the community was divided. There were those in favor of the project, and there were those who were against the project.
The relationship between the churches, particularly the Catholic Church and the national government, is a mutual one. The church over the years are filling in the voids that the government failed to meet in terms of education, health and social services, mostly in remote areas of the country. But this mutual relationship is now being questioned following the removal of Mr. Tennant from the country. The Catholic Church sees it as an unprovoked act of aggression, but the question of who is behind Mr. Tennant's deportation and the reasons behind his deportation are questions that remain unanswered, and the petition presented today is expected to draw answers to these unanswered questions in the coming days. Edwin Fidelis, National EMTV News, Kokopo.
The Foreign Affairs and Immigration Department says it will review lay missionary Douglas Tennant's visa. Chief of Migration Solomon Kantha slammed allegations made by Transparency International PNG of suspicious conduct, reiterating that Tennant was merely deported for breaching the conditions of his visa.
According to Kantha, Tennant was in the country on a special exemption religious work visa. He said Tennant breached conditions of that visa when he engaged in providing legal advice for the church concerning sensitive land issues. The church on Tuesday claimed his deportation came with no prior advice.
Why was the normal processes of good governance and proper processes of law being ignored?
And that he was wrongly deported.
And so, Archbishop is sorry that the wrong man was sent. He says, if you want to deport me, you deport me, because I'm the one who gave the order.
Kantha recalls otherwise. He said the Department of Immigration and Foreign Affairs has consistently notified the Catholic Bishops' Conference of missionaries who had breached their contracts one way or the other and showed leniency in most cases. But he did not single out Tennant's case in his response. He suggested that the case of the missionaries' deportation was in fact blown out of proportion, making reference to allegations of foul play made by Transparency International PNG on Tuesday. The acting chief of migration officer said contrary to their claims, the department was doing its job. He cited operations that the department had engaged in, from dealing with transnational criminals to minor matters like foreigners overstaying their visa. He said they were just never published on media like this one. Kantha has, however, assured the church that Tennant's visa was currently being reviewed. Because Tennant complied with the deportation order, the Department of Immigration and Foreign Affairs has offered him a chance to reapply for a new one. Melissa Gaviro, National EMTV News.
4 naturalized citizens and 138 West Papuans have become citizens of Papua New Guinea. Acting Chief Migration Officer Solomon Kantha is proud that the current government is the first to take steps to see West Papuans get legal status in Papua New Guinea. He also acknowledged the government for doing away with the 10,000 kina citizenship fee for West Papuan refugees.
The Citizenship Certificate Ceremony was a small but significant one held at the Sejong Gai Stadium Indoor Complex this morning in the nation's capital. Present included officers from the Immigration and Citizen Services Authority, PNG Citizenship Advisory Committee and the board, recipients, family and friends. Acting Chief Migration Officer Solomon Kantha said the 4 naturalized citizens who originate from China, United States and Philippines have already contributed immensely to PNG. For the larger group of West Papuans, he acknowledged their resilience without government support and also acknowledged their contribution towards Papua New Guinea's nation building. Naturalized citizen Stephen Dunran expressed gratitude. Notably absent from the ceremony was the minister responsible. Mr. Kantha said the Department of Foreign Affairs and Immigration will work on getting the citizenship certificates signed and issue passports as well. Deli Waigeno, National, EMTV News.
Acting Chief Migration Officer Solomon Kantha has issued a warning to users of the APEC business travel card that misuse of the card and violation of immigration and labor laws can lead to prosecution. He said the business travel card is an advantage PNG has from being a member of APEC. He said by using the card, legitimate business travelers can cross borders in APEC economies without having to apply for a visa and use of express lanes at airports. Mr. Kantha said using the card makes business easier for Papua New Guineans travelling around the APEC region and for business people to conduct business and investment in Papua New Guinea. You're watching National EMTV News. We'll have more after these messages. Stay tuned. Welcome back to National EMTV News. Party leader of the People's Movement for Change says they are working with other like-minded parties to put in place a firm and assertive leadership to form the next government. Oro Governor Gary Jufa says the country had good leaders at independence, but the standard of leadership has declined. The party leader made these remarks during his campaign rally in Madang.
Gary Jufa started his campaign rally yesterday afternoon in Baru village in the Transgogol area of Madang province. Jufa is campaigning for his Madang Open candidate Simon Mathon. The Oro governor told the people gathered that PNG need to vote the right people into parliament to represent them in order to bring the standard of leadership up.
We have seen a decline in the standard of leadership. I would say that after independence, we had about 90% leaders and 10% self-seeking politicians. Today, the ratio is significantly different.
He adds PNG needs a protective and an assertive leadership in order to protect the nation and the interest of its people. A type of leadership that will put in place laws that will allow us to protect our resources so that benefits goes back to the people.
Instead of the type of protective, assertive leadership that we need that would protect the interests of our people, that would put in place laws that would allow us to protect our rights to develop our resources so that the benefits come back to us and our people.
The People's Movement for Change party leader is hoping to be able to bring in a number of his candidates to form the next government. Gary Jufa is aiming to be part of a government that fights and improves the standard of leadership in this country.
I aim to have the influence to be able to put in place leadership that will protect the people's interests, this nation's interests, and jealously guard this resource-rich nation that we have for our future generations. I'm hoping to bring in a number of my candidates and be able to be part of a government that can do that can finally improve the standard of leadership in this country. What we've seen, especially in the last 5 years, is not what the people deserve.
Mata Luis, National EMTV News, Madang.
In response to Gary Jufa's comments, Madang MP and PNC candidate Nixon Duban says the people of Papua New Guinea have demonstrated in the 2012 national election that Prime Minister Peter O'Neill should be the leader of this country. Duban says O'Neill has demonstrated extreme levels of confidence in terms of giving our business community opportunities. This, he says, is the highest bench level that the Prime Minister has set. Duban further states that this is the important milestone that the current-led government has recorded.
Those who are predicting, new opportunities and new challenges should at least be more fair. Our people are already filled up with too many nonsense by leaders of this country who have no track record of developing this country. They have not developed any policies, any guidelines that can give hope to the future of this country. They are banking on looking at mistakes that we are making, which are reasonable mistakes that can only be corrected in due course. Our Prime Minister is a person that has got high level of focus, that is now giving Mosby, Ley, Mount Hagen, Madang, a lot of interventions. Today we are witnessing one, which is part of the coastal vessel program in Madang.
Lack of implementation on the Bougainville peace agreement has prompted Bougainville's President John Momis to call on the United Nations to set up an office in the autonomous region. Chief Momis says the national government has failed to fully honor the Bougainville peace agreement, and it's only fitting for a highest authority like the United Nations to oversee its implementation. Momis delivered the keynote address at the 12th anniversary celebrations marking the establishment of the autonomous Bougainville government in Buka this week.
Since 2005, the national government unfortunately has failed to fully honor the Bougainville peace agreement, which obligates both governments to implement. One of the outstanding issues is on development grants. President Momis has been very vocal and frustrated with the national government's behavior, saying they must submit to a higher authority like the United Nations to resolve deadlocks of issues and or settle disagreements.
To be present on Bougainville, to monitor what is happening. We have used our time and energy to negotiate a resolution to this crisis, and the PNG government has resolutely refused to come to the table.
And with the set date of 2019 referendum, the national government must act. This is not only to bring peace, but allow Bougainvillians to decide the final political future.
We must respect the process and put the process in place, and not only be glued, have our eyes glued on the ultimate goal without considering the strategies that are necessary.
Meanwhile, on this occasion of the 12th anniversary celebrations in Buka, a resource center of the Bougainville House of Representatives was also commissioned. The 12 years of being an autonomous government were about milestone achievements and patriotism.
We stand with you in the journey towards the referendum and beyond, and look forward to accompanying that process and supporting you and all of the people of Bougainville and Papua New Guinea as we chart this really important time in our history.
Now, 12 years has passed on since the establishment of the autonomous Bougainville government in 2005. The island's President-Chief John Momis says there's growth in autonomy, and he has called on the national government to fully honor the Bougainville peace agreement by giving Bougainvillians what they rightfully deserve. In Buka, Fabian Hakelitz, National EMTV News.
The Papua New Guinea Gas Projects Coordination Office can look forward to improved performance with the office moving into a new location this week. According to Peter Koim, the director of PNG GPCO, the new facility is a turning point for the organization that is tasked to coordinate all LNG projects in the country. With the PNG LNG project now into full swing, Papua New Guinea has been placed on the world map as an ideal investment destination for the extraction of natural gas. For the PNG Gas Projects Coordination Office, its role as the lead facilitator for gas projects is crucial, as it is tasked with coordinating all gas projects within the country.
You have GPCO, which is the Gas Project Coordination Office. They are Project Coordination Office. They work with all the other government agencies and coordinate. Government department itself, Department of Petroleum and Energy, is a policy monitoring regulator of the industry.
This week, PNG GPCO moved into its new office. An office refit at a cost of 3 million kina, largely funded by state oil company Kumul Petroleum.
For us to have this kind of office facility, we're really proud of it, and we know that certainly our staff morale will be boosted and our productivity will certainly lift.
This office, located within Pacific Place building, is owned by Petroleum Resource Kutubu landowners.
The Gas Projects Coordination Office, the Minister for Petroleum and Energy and his staff are so privileged to receive a facility like this. And I would like to thank especially the people who were behind this, Kumul Petroleum, the contractors, Evergreen Grant, and the Kumul staff that have been involved. So
we funded the whole lot so that they operate from a good office.
And it's a lovely and wonderful investment by the landowners, this building alone. So we're happy to see Managing Director for MRDC also here. End of the day, it's money that's going to the pockets of the landowners who owns this building.
According to Mr. Koim, this is an example of how industry players can work together to lift the performance of state agencies in the petroleum, oil and gas space in Papua New Guinea.
What they have done is not different to what industry players are supporting government agencies in many respects. So thanks to Kumul, but I think one thing that I'd like to point out is that now that the guest office has got this really flashy office, I feel for my brothers at GP, and maybe the next step might be for us, industry and state, to collaborate and work together to look at how we can assist the department to find better office space and the progressing of the setting up of the authority and moving forward.
PNG LNG project landowners in Central Province have been assured that their royalties will be paid by the state. Department of Petroleum and Energy Acting Secretary Kepsi Puye gave this reassurance when asked by EMTV. His comments follow threats by landowners in Central Province to halt operations at the PNG LNG plant site.
Which I already did. Secretary of Finance and I have no problem in paying them. There's the Energy Decision number 126 2016, which gives us the authority to pay landowner groups, which are ready. Now, I've written to the state to give me legal clearance to actually pay. Once I get the legal clearance, which hopefully I will get this week, then Finance Secretary will be contacted to direct the Governor of the Central Bank to release those funds to our respective trust accounts. From the trust accounts, we will move money to MRDC's trust arrangement, and then subsequently we will pay them. We're very sorry that it's taken more than 3 years to pay the landowners. I'd like to also take this opportunity to thank the landowners, both the plant side landowners as well as the pipeline plus the upstream landowners for their degree of patience. And very, very important that they've recognized the importance of the PNG LNG project. So we have now started the process.
NCD regional candidate James Melagepa has questioned the national government's debt owed to state creditors and service providers. Mr. Melagepa said the way the country has been managed so far has resulted in a very high debt-to-GDP situation. He also warned that the government may resort to another structured adjustment program if the predicted El Nino occurs.
James Melagepa from Ungai-Bena District, Eastern Highlands Province, is contesting as an independent for the NCD regional seat. He has over 35 years of experience in the public sector. Specializing in policy advisory and legislative developments, Mr. Melagepa has also been part of the structural adjustment programs the country has undergone. Speaking on the country's economy, Mr. Melagepa says the government has only been vocal on borrowing funds from abroad on the basis of never defaulting from their past loans.
There's more borrowing that the government wants to undertake, and on the basis that PNG has never defaulted on its debt obligations. That may be true, but that other question that still remains begging at the moment is how much does the government have owes the creditors in PNG itself?
The way the economy has been so far, Mr. Melagepa says the government has not been truthful.
Some of the big creditors includes state having not living up to its obligations to pay money to POSF, for instance, or the number one super. That constitutes money that is owing to people. If we go to 2015, as a starting point, for instance, the SP Games provided a very interesting outcome.
The government borrowed a huge amount of funds for the Pacific Games in 2015. However, some sporting venues to date are still incomplete. Melegepa highlighted that this gives an idea of contractors not being paid and services being put on hold. Meanwhile, if the second expected El Nino occurs, Melegepa warned the situation will only get worse.
I'm very worried that we may hit another round of a situation that is quite dire. Compared to the early 1980s, early 1990s and late 1990s, when we had to go through two structural adjustment programs for the country. The first one had to do with the Bougainville copper mine when it closed, and that was the first structural adjustment that the country had experienced. The second one was in 2000, when after the drought situation that affected the Octedi operations, and we had to go through another second round of adjustments. Those have been painful exercises that the country had to go through. But in the current environment where the expenditure by the government have been very high, the borrowing has been very high, there's no clue whatsoever in terms of how much the government owes to the creditors in Papua New Guinea.
Marilyn Diaukatam, National EMTV News.
And now a look at the finance news. The kina closed unchanged at $0.3145 in the interbank market. At Bank South Pacific, your kina was buying $0.307, $0.402 Australian dollars, $0.2723 euro, and 33.72 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, gold is trading higher, coffee closed higher, while cocoa and copper closed the day lower. Crude oil is trading higher, palm oil closed higher, while copper closed the day lower. And on the stock markets, the Dow Jones closed 14 points lower, the ASX closed 10 points higher, and the All Ordinaries closed 11 points higher. Here with National EMTV News, stories making headlines overseas. When we come back, stay tuned. Welcome back to National EMTV News. Turning overseas now, British Prime Minister Theresa May has visited those affected by the Deadly Tower block fire in West London. It has now ordered a full public inquiry into the tragedy. The number of dead confirmed so far is 17, with 6 people now identified. There's also a sense of growing anger in the community about warnings vain ignored.
Slowly, inch by painstaking inch, fire officers continue their grim and dangerous work. Amid the soot-blackened shell of what was once home to hundreds are some who didn't make it out. Exactly how many we don't know, but police today said they hoped the final death toll would not be in 3 figures. The scale of this tragedy is yet to become clear.
Sadly, I can confirm that the number of people that have died is now 17. We do believe that that number will sadly increase. There are 37 people receiving treatment, of which 17 are still in critical care.
The brother of these 2 Syrians was one of those who lost his life. Mohammed al-Hajali was an engineering student seeking a better life in Britain. Omar was with him as firemen tried to evacuate the blazing building, but the pair got separated.
And I looked behind me, I didn't see my brother. I said, my brother, where is he? They were ignoring downstairs. Then I went outside. I called him, he said, where are you? He said, I'm in the flat. I said, why you didn't come? They brought us outside. I thought you are with us. He said, no one brought me outside. He said, why you left me?
Relatives of 5-year-old Isaac Paulos confirmed today that the little boy was among those who died in the fire. In a community that is craving answers but complains of delays and evasion.
At the moment we're grieving, but there's a public anger underneath, and we do want to see someone held accountable for this.
The Prime Minister made a private visit to the scene today, speaking to emergency workers before announcing there will be a full public inquiry into what went wrong.
When I spoke to the emergency services, they told me that this fire, the way this fire progressed, how it took hold of this building, was rapid, it was ferocious, and it was unexpected.
The concerns are not just about what went wrong in North Kensington. They're also about what could go wrong in thousands of tower blocks across Britain. Residents at Trellick Tower, who can see Grenfell Tower from their balconies, now have a constant and disturbing reminder of the risks of high-rise living.
Donald Trump has lashed out at claims that he is being investigated for possible obstruction of justice. The Washington Post reports it's part of the inquiry into his campaign team's links to Russia. The White House has not responded, but there's been furious tweeting from the president.
Inside the White House today, President Trump ignored questions about that bombshell report. He's under investigation for obstruction of justice.
Mr. President, do you believe that you are under investigation now?
But he lashed out on Twitter, calling it a phony story, saying, "You are witnessing the single greatest witch hunt in American political history, led by some very bad and conflicted people." The White House tight-lipped, refusing to say who those bad and conflicted people are. But the Washington Post report that the president himself is now the subject of special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation comes as a major turning point in the Russia probe. A key question, did the president fire former FBI Director James Comey because of the Russia investigation? Comey says yes.
I was fired in some way to change, or the endeavor was to change the way the Russia investigation was being conducted. That is a very big deal.
Now it's no longer just he said, he said. Investigators are looking into whether the president repeated something he did with Comey, telling all government officials to clear out of a White House meeting so he could be alone with CIA Director Mike Pompeo and the Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coats. There, the president reportedly asked Coats to intervene in the investigation into fired National Security Advisor Mike Flynn. The president also reportedly called Coats and NSA Director Admiral Mike Rogers and asked them to publicly declare there was no collusion with Russia. They refused. According to the Washington Post, Rogers' former deputy wrote a memo at the time documenting that phone call. And now the special counsel investigators want to talk to all three men. And with these questions swirling, the president is still tweeting, hammering Hillary Clinton, the Democrats, and what he calls that phony story.
Doctors in the United States caring for the man released by North Korea says he's in a vegetative state and has not spoken or moved since returning home. And they say there is no evidence of Pyongyang's claim the 22-year-old Otto Warmbier had botulism.
I knelt down by his side and I hugged him.
Wearing the same jacket his son wore while being interrogated in North Korea. Otto Warmbier's father speaks for the first time since Otto came home.
We went for 15 months without a word from or about Otto.
They learned just last week that their son has been in a coma for more than a year.
North Korea is a pariah regime. They're brutal and they're terroristic. We don't believe anything they say.
For the past 18 months, the 22-year-old was being held prisoner in North Korea, sentenced to 15 years hard labor for allegedly trying to steal a political poster from his hotel.
I've made the worst mistake of my life.
Warmbier's release comes after secret talks between U.S. and North Korean officials last month in Norway.
We received a very nice phone call from President Trump.
Warmbier's father credits the current administration for his son's release. North Korea says they let Warmbier go for humanitarian reasons.
After 4 days of deliberating, juries in Bill Cosby's trial said they are deadlocked and cannot come to a unanimous decision on any of the 3 charges against the comedian.
Today, tempers flared outside this Pennsylvania courthouse between Cosby supporters and an alleged Cosby victim.
Let me speak, please.
The tension erupted after the jury reported they're deadlocked, unable to reach a unanimous verdict after reviewing testimony and nearly 40 hours of deliberations. The judge telling them to try again in the hopes of avoiding a mistrial. As Bill Cosby waits in the courthouse today, his spokesman outside thanked the jurors.
Keep deliberating, and hopefully we get out of here the way we came in, as a not guilty and innocent man.
But with Cosby's fate hanging in the balance, his accuser appeared relaxed, sending her own message. Andrea Constant, the former Temple women's basketball director of operations, who claims that Cosby drugged and then sexually assaulted her in 2004, today tweeted out this lighthearted video, shooting hoops as she waits for that verdict, with the tagline, "Always follow through." Her case against Cosby is the only criminal prosecution stemming from allegations from more than 50 women who have accused the comedian of sexual misconduct and or drugging. Several accusers are attending the trial, like Victoria Valentino, who's been here for 2 weeks from California.
I feel very deflated. I'm worried, but I'm holding on to some hope because the judge is telling him to go back in there and work on it.
Medical experts are calling for a change to the way women are treated for heart disease and the amount of medication they are prescribed. It follows a new push for the Australia Heart Foundation, highlighting that 1 female succumbs to the disease every hour across the Tasman.
The latest campaign aims to dispel the common stereotype with heart disease.
I'd gone to breastfeed the twins when I felt a sudden pain in my left arm.
It's a message 37-year-old Michelle Hampton is happy to share after undergoing open heart surgery this year, triggered by terrible palpitations.
They explained to me that I had a severely dilated right ventricle and it needed repair as soon as possible. I'm living proof that you don't need to, look a certain way or be a certain age to be at risk of heart disease.
Historically, most clinical trials are done on middle-aged men, and so when it comes to cardiovascular medications, the European Society of Cardiology says adverse drug reactions are more severe and more common in women than men. Women and men absorb, distribute, metabolise and excrete drugs differently.
We know that hormones play a role in how women react or respond to treatments.
Some examples relating to side effects include the use of statins to lower cholesterol. Muscle pain is more common in older women with low body weight, and aspirin resistance is more frequent in females. European experts are calling for sex-specific guidelines on treatment, including changes to drug labelling.
I'm quite a slight person, and it's just unbelievable to think that someone who's could be, potentially much larger than me, who's on the same dose.
With National EMTV News, we'll have Trukai Sports up next. Details when we return.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. The Rugby League World Cup aims to leave a legacy of children playing the sport at a younger age. With that in mind, they have teamed up with the PNG NRL to introduce a new Come and Try initiative.
Mark and his NRL on such a wonderful initiative.
Come and Try will see 10 primary schools in NCD feature in the Mini and Modified Games. The Mini and Modified Games are rugby league matches played between young children. Mini is for children aged 6 to 9. And the Modified Games are for children aged 10 to 12. This is an age group in which the PNG NRL is working to address to complete the selection pathways for rugby league players in the country.
We have the Hunters, we have the Kumals, we now have the girls participating in the first Rugby League World Cup, and therefore the NRL PNG needed to provide the last piece in the puzzle, which is the 6 to 12-year-old framework for PNG RFL to basically start.
In-country NRL General Manager Mark Mom says it is a significant step they've taken and are looking forward to the outcome.
This framework will be built over this next 6 months in conjunction with PNG RFL. We've trained casuals who worked in the NRL program to now move into the Modified Games program. And
PNG RFL Board Director Don Fox says they are looking forward to watching children play in the Mini and Modified competition.
We need to do anything physically and humanly possible to get our kids off the street and onto the field playing, be it footy, cricket, Aussie rules, soccer. It doesn't matter what it is as long as we get our kids onto the field. So Mark, on behalf of our chairman and Rayatau, our CEO, you've got our full support.
Rugby League World Cup host City manager Tasman Samuel says as part of the World Cup's legacy item, they plan for more children to play rugby league.
For PNG, as we know, rugby league is a national sport. We've excelled at international level,
And we can go further if we fix the junior programs up. And if we go as low as 6 up to 12 years old, where the more developed countries and Australia's success in the World Cup and at the international level goes back to the junior development programs. In New Zealand, England, the developed countries. So we want to emulate that, and we want to replicate that in PNG. So this is the biggest legacy item that any sporting event or tournament that has come through PNG will leave behind.
There will be a mini and modified match played before the SP PNG Hunters game tomorrow at the National Football Stadium. Elijah Levet, National EMTV Sports.
History will be made for FC Papaka as they face MRDC Hekari United in the inaugural National Premier League Grand Final tomorrow at the PNG Football Stadium in Port Moresby. The third and fourth playoffs with the women's final will kick off the day's proceedings.
FC Papaka has proven their worth in the National Premier League competition, finishing the season on a high. And coming off a semi-final win against Momase competition leaders Makam FC has put them in a good stead for the finals against Hekari. For Papaka coach David Awa, reaching the final was a significant achievement for the young side, with a crop of talent coming straight from the villages outside Port Moresby. Papaka will go into the final as the underdogs, facing an opponent who's undisputedly stamped their mark in PNG's football history books and continues to dominate football in the country, MRDC Hekari United. The men in red are favored to win this match, boasting an unbeaten record throughout the season, cruising through the final with 11-0 thrashing of Northern Conference Nawab FC in the semi-final sets the tone for Erickson Coleman coach side. The third and fourth playoffs will see the battle of Momase leg frontrunners Nawab FC and Makam. In the women's final, Southern Conference winners Hekari to face off with Prima Power, which is expected to be a thriller. The finals will be spiced up by live band performance led by Solomon Island singer and YouTube sensation Delma Rossi and PNG's Wame Blood. The match will be played at the PNG Football Stadium with the tickets going for 10 kina per person and 5 kina for the students. Gates open at 10 a.m. Shane Saroya, National EMTV Sports.
Trukai Sports continues after the break. Stay with us.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. To netball and classy performance by Rebels captain Lua Rikis, who led his side to a 20-point win in the opening round 3 fixture against Mona. The introduction of a host of younger players including Marilyn Taule and Justina Gabina.
Far more convincing victory for the Rebels this time around, following up from last week's frustration against Veupunama. PNG and Rebels captain Lua Rikis all class as her prowess inside the D boosted her side's winning streak. Leading by 15 points to 6 in the first quarter, that lead was extended to a massive 43-24 as the game ended the third quarter. The final quarter would see a host of changes for the Rebels, introducing their youth side as they prepared for what will most likely be a playoff position in the upcoming finals. Goal defender Winnie Mavara happy with the side's performance as the Rebels cruised to a comfortable 57-37 goal win.
We won, but it's disappointed with the win. We thought we took them too lightly, or they came out wanting to play and we didn't want to play, something like that. But today we wanted to improve on last week's performance.
We did really well. I think it was team support, team encouragement out there that pushed us to slot in more goals.
In the other Tier 2 match, it was a more even contest between Veupunama and Raukele. Raukele's Melissa Elaupa and Verera Kala fighting to keep the scores tight as the first quarter ended 11-all, the second with Raukele a single point ahead, and the third, that side 4 points behind. Their resilience, however, holding through as they fought back in the final quarter to take back the win of 41-38.
Yeah, I think we needed to keep to the basics and keep it simple instead of doing overworking ourselves and passing from right from the middle, bring it up to the circle and keep it simple, short and simple, yeah.
Yes, we did. We had a lot of turnovers, but our guys didn't really have to go for the attack. We kept on holding back, so yeah.
The competition is scheduled for this weekend at the Rita Flynn Complex. Jeremy Moggy, National TV Sports.
And then in Strukai Sports up next, your Saturday weather details. Stay tuned.
Strukai Sports. Strukai Sports.
The weather details are proudly brought to you by Dulux Weather Shield. Worth doing with Dulux.
Here's a look at the Saturday weather in the southern region. Port Moresby, Daru, Kerama, Alota and Popondetta all expecting fine weather over the next 24 hours.
The weather details are proudly brought to you by Dulux Weather Shield. Worth doing with Dulux.
And that's the way it is this Friday, the 16th of June 2017. On behalf of the EMTV News team, pleasant viewing. Have a safe weekend. Good night.